Yo guys, what's going on? It's Max, and today's video, ideally it's going to be a little bit shorter. I always say that at the recording and then it ends up being like 15 minutes. That's why I'm re-recording this one right now. Um, but I wanted to kind of have a quick question. It probably won't take too long. I promise I'll try to keep it short. Um, the question I had in regards to, like, not this gameplay in particular, but in general, are there specific survivor perks that when brought are considered toxic? And I guess the follow-up is it not necessarily the perks, but like the quantity of them in a group? And I'll explain a little bit. For example, if you see me playing without a webcam, I record games off stream. I like playing more. I like getting footage to turn into shorts. That's usually what I'm doing. So if you don't see a webcam, that's why. Complete brand new footage in the background. But I found it interesting that, I ran this build. You could see here, I don't think it's good by any means. Probably the best perk here is hyperfocus, but the build background player, it's the sprint burst when someone gets picked up. Basically, people theorize you use it to get in position for flashlight saves. In my opinion, that's like the best use for it. I have flashbang and hyperfocus to help do a little bit of generators and get the flashbangs a bit quicker, as well as object of obsession to get in position to then do those saves. People like survivor gameplay clips like that. I figured I would do my best to try and record, get some fun gameplay like that, convert it into a short. That's, as a content creator, that's just kind of my logic, my choice there. But I noticed that a lot of people like, and this kind of stems from some YouTube discussions in the past. Like, this is not just recently, this is over the last couple months that I've been making videos, where people are like, it's not toxic, but it's like, it's frustrating, it's a difficult experience to go into 4 dead hard / exhaustion perks, 4 adrenalines, and it's like, I get that. I'm not gonna, undermine it, because I know when I've gone into games where I play against people, like 4 people, each with very strong builds, it feels brutal to go against. I'm not gonna, pretend that it doesn't, but when they go as far as saying it's like a toxic experience, I don't know if I personally agree with that. I will agree 100%. It doesn't feel good, but like, is it toxic for 4 people, even if you don't know them all, to bring dead hards? I don't know. Or for example, like when I'm playing with my friend, we would end up trying to do stupid builds around each other. Like, it would just be me and him, so it's only 2 of us, but we would do something like power struggle, unbreakable, tenacity, flip-flop, right? And all of those perks, for those of you who don't know, just really quick, it's just a synergistic build behind going down underneath a pallet and pallet saving yourself with power struggle. And so it's like, if one person does that gimmick, it's like, it's fine. If 2 people do that, okay, maybe it's a bit annoying. Now, if all 4 people do it, does that feel like it's toxic? You know what I mean? And maybe it's a weird way to phrase it, but like, I've noticed that argument pops up sometimes where it's like, one person runs head on, I have a good laugh out of it. 2 people do it, like, oh, that's funny. 2 people, probably they're duo queued. And if all 4 people are running head on, it's like, cool, it's a survive with friends. I don't get upset about that, but I understand people feel that that's like toxic bully squad. And bully squad is a term that I think if there's a more unanimous decision of like a definition, I think it'd be better. But I don't know. To me, it's weird that like the quantity of bad perks not bad. The quantity of those perks is what sometimes is the breaking factor for being toxic or not. And I wanted to ask you guys, like, do you think that perks like that are inherently like toxic in higher quantity or ineffectiveness? Like, for example, I think one of the more recent ones is something like Boil Over, where with the change to skill checks, or at least like on Old Eyrie of Crows was like the most recent one I could think of, or RPD Library, where because of the change to Boil Over at the time, if you went to the top floor of the library, which is now closed off, or top corner of Eyrie of Crows, which has now been adjusted, that like you could actually, in theory, go down in these corners and never get hooked. It was physically impossible to get down if the survivor was wiggling and struggling properly to a hook as the killer when they ran those perks. Now, it's like, in that instance, I think a lot of people would argue if one person is deliberately going to these map spots and abusing Boil Over, that could be toxic. I probably could agree with that sentiment. I understand what they're saying, but like, if everyone does that, clearly it's more toxic. If one person does it, it's still toxic. Yet if one person brings head on, it's like, oh, that was a cool gimmick. I don't think it's as quote unquote as toxic. But if 4 people do it, now you're actually just bullying. And I get it. I get why it's bullying, if 4 people are choosing to head on the killer instead of getting the gens done. But I also think it's kind of an interesting counterpoint that, like, if 4 people choose to try and mess around with the killer, having fun, flashlights, head-ons, whatever. If you play Survivor, like, it's fun. Interacting with the killer is one of the most fun things you can do in the game. I would argue personally, and I hope people agree, that's much more engaging and interesting than gen rushing. But then, it kind of leads to this interesting, unique situation where, like, if multiple people are bringing those quote unquote toxic perks, now all of a sudden what you're doing is wrong, even though you're just trying to have fun. Sorry, I hate needing to clear my throat so often. But that's really the basics of the video. That's just kind of the core question that I had and wanted to know what you guys were thinking about it. You could see, like, I just got hit by a zombie because I'm trying to get in position to get a flashbang save. Like, from the killer's perspective, he might be like, there's a survivor that's being pesky, being irritating, trying to go for this flashbang, and, like, even right here, he notices I'm in the area, I get slapped, I'm trying to burn time, trying to get in position. Like, I'm being what he may call annoying, but in reality, I'm not getting a generator done, I'm not healing anybody else, I'm not doing anything. And I think that as a killer player, I've gotten to acknowledge more and more that, like, when people do this, I'm only kind of not at an advantage, but, like, I feel like I'd rather survivors be doing this. I feel like survivors doing this is, like, better for me than to be gen rushing and healing. That's, maybe that's just my opinion on it. I mistimed it completely there. But I thought that was, like, an interesting counterpoint. Counterpoint / dynamic to talk about, where, like, my actions could be constituted or regarded as toxic. Like, I genuinely think from this Nemesis perspective, like, I'm being that pesky, annoying survivor, but objectively, in terms of, like, that optimal gameplay, I'm not doing anything bad. And I personally don't get annoyed by that, but that's, like, in my opinion, the more frustrating component of the game is when people say, like, you're going against 4 exhaustion perks / dead hards, adrenalines, prove thyself, off the records, you name it. Before it was unbreakable, decisive strikes, plus whatever. Where, like, when you go against that so often, it's super difficult to win a game, even if I'm trying my best. But here, like, I'm clearly, in my opinion, playing pretty bad, messing around, And so when I'm at this situation where I'm just having fun, trying to do whatever, get a clip for, converting to a YouTube short, is like, are my actions now considered toxic because I'm, bothering the killer, when in reality, the rest of the game, I wasn't having a whole lot of, interaction, engagement. I would argue the game hasn't really been as much fun. Just, I don't know, just some kind of open-ended questions that I feel like maybe I play the game like, and this was another conversation I had with someone else in the comments. Like, I come from an esports background where I try to be a lot more analytical and objective in my analysis or approach to video games. I do my best to make sure emotions don't get the best of me when I'm playing. Obviously, there's times I'm, playing something like Apex Legends, lose 8 ranked games in a row, and I'm like, all right, let's call it. Let's take a break. I'm not playing well. I'm not going to keep playing well if I'm going to try and force, my head into a wall trying to fix the game, like, get my rank back. It's not going to work. So I guess for me, and, like, even you could hear, like, my arguments are a little bit more analytical in the sense that, like, if I'm playing suboptimally to try and have more fun, maybe I'm the weird one that doesn't see that as inherently toxic or negative, but people do. And I don't want to take that away from them, because I understand if you get frustrated by those situations as a casual player, Absolutely. It's not a fun experience to get head on 4 times and everyone, clicky clicky flashlight at you. It doesn't feel good. I don't click flashlights. It's like, I know the things that I think are considered blanket toxic, like teabagging at exit gate, actually teabagging in general, I think is pretty stupid. But, I don't know. I just wanted to leave that up to you guys. Do you think there's certain perks that if someone brings, it's like, that's toxic? Or is it if you bring that perk in high quantity when you're queued with people, it's toxic? Like I've run No Mither a few times because I like goofing around with my friends. The randoms probably queue in, see that I'm injured, and they're like, this idiot, like I'm not going to pick him up, whatever. But then there's the other half of people that are like, yo, this guy's running No Mither, respect. I'm in the latter category. Like, someone's permanently injured, dude, I'm risking everything to get them out of the game because I think that's just funny. But like, that could also be considered toxic / griefing another survivor teammate, or the same thing. Like the perks that come to mind that are inherently quote unquote toxic that I've seen people talk about are things like getting multi-man head-on, multi-man power struggled, boil over, breakout, and I don't know. It made me wonder, is one person like my friend who has those perks, like, is him bringing a breakout build toxic, or is it a breakout build and everyone getting ready to try and body block and take hits the toxic experience? Because not everyone needs to bring the breakout build. Or, when I was all of my friends together and we'd all have flashlights trying to prep for each other, and it would be for head-ons, quick and quiet, vigil, and like one other perk. I don't know what we picked, but like at that point we're just having fun trying to go for a bunch of head-ons. Sure, that must be frustrating for the killer. We didn't even touch a generator that whole game, so it's like the killer was gonna win eventually. I'm not saying like, oh, you had to get us, but like, yeah, we just wanted to have fun, and clearly the killer is gonna win that game when we're messing around. But then there's the situations where some people, they bring those kind of crazy builds. Like, one guy brings a good breakout build, one guy's trying to help get off the hook because he has an awesome chase build, and the other two people just get gens done, and now all of a sudden the game progresses out of your hand. You have a hard time securing one hook and the game feels unwinnable. And that's, I personally don't consider that toxic, but it is a frustrating experience. Blanket statement. I don't want to take that away from people. I'm sorry if you heard the car in the background. And so that's really it. It was more of just a like, what and why do people consider certain survivor perks toxic, even if they're not meta, which I think is kind of the more interesting conversation point. Whereas like, I get frustrated from multiple dead hards and things like that, whereas on the flip side, when I get affected by something else that isn't as problematic, like a head-on, even if it happens with all 4 people trying to go for head-ons, more often than not, I'm probably going to play that game better. Like, I would get a net better result, more hooks, possibly more kills, than if they were to be playing seriously. And I personally don't have an issue when that's what they do, because I know, in reality, I'm probably going to end up getting a better result, even if it takes a little bit more, even if they're having more fun. So maybe that's it. I'm probably in a minority here. I understand. I play games coming from a different perspective, so understandably so. That being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all. I'll see you all on Friday, and take it easy. Peace.